Two babies were born on the same mat, drank from the same breast, played in the same dirt, learned from the same father. 30 years later, one sleeps on silk while the other sleeps on regret. One feeds 50 people from his harvest. The other begs for scraps at funerals. One's name brings respect. The other's name brings pity. What happened? Here's what makes this story dangerous. The rich brother? He wasn't the smart one. He wasn't the talented one. He wasn't even the favored one. The poor brother had everything. He was handsome. So handsome that women would stop their work just to watch him pass. He was confident. The kind of confidence that made old men listen when he spoke. He was the firstborn. In our culture, that means everything. Everyone knew he would be great. His father knew it. His mother knew it. The village elders nodded approvingly whenever they saw him. That one, they said, that one is going places. And the other brother? While others celebrate his brother, overlooked, underestimated, nobody talked about him. He was just there. The spare son. The backup. The one you greet politely, but never remember. So let me ask you again, what happened? What invisible force flipped their destinies? What secret did one discover that the other missed? Because I promise you, it wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It wasn't even talent. It was something simpler. Something so simple that most people miss it their entire lives. Something so obvious that it hides in plain sight. And here's why you need to hear this story right now. Not later, not tomorrow, but right now. You are standing at the exact same crossroads where these brothers stood. You might not see it. The path doesn't have a sign that says this way to poverty or this way to wealth. But you're there. And every single thing you do today, what you choose to learn, what you choose to avoid, who you choose to become, is pushing you down one path or the other. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you something that will haunt you. I'm going to take you inside the life of both brothers, moment by moment, choice by choice, consequence by consequence, until you see exactly where the path split. And here's my promise. By the end of the story, you'll know which brother you are. You'll know which path you're on. And you'll know, with terrifying clarity, what you need to change starting tonight. But I'm going to warn you, this story is not entertainment. This is a mirror, and some of you won't like what you see. Some of you will see yourself in the brother who failed. You'll recognize your own excuses in his mouth, your own patterns in his choices, your own future in his poverty. And you'll want to run from this video. Don't run, because I'm also going to show you the way out. The exact moment where change is still possible. The precise choices that lead to redemption. Others will see yourself in the brother who succeeded. You'll feel proud, maybe even superior. Be careful, because pride, the very feeling you're feeling right now, is the poison that destroyed the other brother. And it's waiting to destroy you too. This is not just a story about two men. This is a story about your grandfather and why he died poor. This is about your children and whether they'll curse your name or bless your memory. This is about the invisible chains that keep families in poverty for generations and the invisible keys that break those chains. Right now, someone in your family is the brother who's about to fail. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's your son. They have potential. They have dreams. They have plans. And they have no idea they're about to lose everything. Right now, someone else in your family could be the brother who rises. Quiet, overlooked, working while others play, and nobody sees their greatness coming. Which one are you going to be? Here's what I need from you, few minutes. Not as background noise. Not while you cook or scroll. Few minutes of your full attention. Because this story is coded. The wisdom is hidden in the details. Miss those details, and you'll miss everything. And one more thing. Before we start, ask yourself this question. 5 years from now, will I be the story people tell about success, or the story people tell about wasted potential? Because 5 years is coming whether you're ready or not. The only question is what you're going to do with the time between now and then. The story begins. Pay attention to everything. The smallest details will save your life. In a village where everyone knew everyone's secrets, there lived a man named Okonkwo. And Okonkwo had a problem. Not the kind of problem you solve with money. Not the kind you solve with strength. The kind that keeps you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you failed. His two sons were growing up, and every day, he watched them becoming who they would be. And every day, his heart grew heavier. See, Okonkwo knew something most fathers don't know until it's too late. He knew that talent means nothing, that intelligence means nothing, that even hard work means nothing if you're working on the wrong things, in the wrong way, for the wrong reasons. Okonkwo had learned this the hard way. He'd been like his firstborn son once, full of big dreams and small discipline. He chased shortcuts and found dead ends. He trusted the wrong people and paid with years of his life. But he'd learned. Oh, he'd learned. And he'd rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. Honestly. And now, watching his sons, he saw the same fork in the road approaching them that he'd once faced. Only this time, he had knowledge. He had wisdom. He had warnings to give. The question was, would they listen? Let me tell you about the first morning everything became clear. The morning Okonkwo realized his sons were walking different paths, even though they were standing in the same field. The boys were 9 and 7. Okonkwo had given them each a small plot of land, just a few square meters, to plant yams. This was tradition. A boy's first crop. A boy's first lesson in responsibility. Chike, the eldest, attacked his plot with enthusiasm. He worked fast, confident, flashy. He dug holes quickly, threw in the seeds, covered them roughly. He was done in an hour. "Father, I'm finished," he announced proudly. "Can I go play now?" Okonkwo looked at the work. The holes were uneven. Some seeds were planted too deep, others too shallow. The soil wasn't properly prepared, but the job was done. "Yes, my son. Go." Chike ran off, whooping with joy, joining the other boys who were playing warriors in the village square. Then Okonkwo turned to Ease. The younger boy was still working. Slowly, carefully. He'd spent the first 20 minutes just studying his father's technique. Then he'd practiced on a small patch before starting his actual plot. "Ease, your brother is finished. Don't you want to play?" The boy looked up, dirt on his face, sweat on his forehead. "But father, if I rush, the yams won't grow properly. And you said we would eat what we grow. I want to eat good yams." Okonkwo felt something twist in his chest. Pride in one son, worry for the other, and the terrible knowledge that he was watching their futures being written in real time. 3 months later, the yams sprouted. Chike's plot, half the seeds never grew. The ones that did grew weak and stunted. He got angry. "The soil was bad," he complained. "You gave me the bad section of the field, father. It's not fair." Okonkwo said nothing. He just walked over to Ease's plot. Thick green leaves, strong stems, healthy mounds. Every single seed had become a plant. "How did you do this?" Chike demanded of his brother. "What trick did you use?" Ease looked confused. "No trick, brother. I just did what father showed us." "That's a lie. You must have used better seeds. Or father helped you." This was the first crack. Small, almost invisible, but it was there. And over the years, that crack would become a canyon. If you want to know who someone really is, take them to the market. The market reveals truth. At home, people can pretend. At the farm, they can hide. But at the market, where money changes hands, where deals are made, where reputation is currency, the market shows you everything. Every 4 days, Okonkwo would load his harvest onto a cart and take both boys to market. This was their business education, their real schooling, the place where theory met reality and reality didn't care about your excuses. Chike loved market day. The energy, the attention, the feeling of being part of something important. He would dress in his best cloth, oil his skin until it shone, and walk through the crowds like a prince inspecting his kingdom. He greeted everyone loudly, slapped backs, made jokes, told stories. He was magnetic. People smiled when they saw him. Women blushed. Men laughed at his wit. But here's what Okonkwo noticed. All that popularity, all that charm, all that energy, and Chike never sold anything. He was too busy performing to actually conduct business. Too busy being seen to actually see what customers wanted. Too busy talking to actually listen. Meanwhile, Ease would stand quietly at their stall. He didn't attract crowds. He didn't tell jokes. He didn't perform. But he watched. Oh, how he watched. He watched which produce sold first and why. He noticed that the tomatoes at the front attracted people, but the yams at the back made the profit. He observed that the old women were the best customers. They bought consistently and told their friends. He listened to what people complained about. These yams are too big. I can't carry them. That trader sold me bad peppers last week. I wish someone sold smaller portions for those of us who live alone. And then, E started solving those problems. He offered to deliver heavy purchases to customers' homes for free. Word spread. He started selecting and setting aside the best produce for his regular customers before the market even opened. They came to him first because they knew he'd save them something good. Loyalty built. He created small, affordable portions for the elderly and widows. They became his most devoted advertisers, telling everyone about Okonkwo's thoughtful son. Within 6 months, Ease was selling more produce than his father. Not because he was more charismatic, not because he had better products, but because he actually understood what markets are, problems looking for solutions, and people willing to pay for convenience, reliability, and respect. One evening, a wealthy merchant approached their stall. He looked at Okonkwo, then at Ease. I need someone to manage my supply chain from the inland villages to the city, the merchant said. Someone reliable, someone who thinks ahead, someone who treats people right, because reputation is the only currency that never loses value. He pointed at Ease. Train your boy, and when he's 18, send him to me. I'll pay him well and teach him the trade routes. Chike, who'd been chatting with friends nearby, rushed over when he realized a deal was being discussed. Sir, I'm the elder brother. I should. The merchant looked at him coldly. I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are. You're the boy who's always at the center of things. But I don't need the center. I need the foundation. And foundations are quiet. He walked away, leaving Chike standing there, humiliated in the place he loved most. That night, Okonkwo tried to turn the moment into a teaching opportunity. Chike, do you understand what happened today? Yes. That merchant is a fool who can't recognize real talent. The father's heart breaks a little. No, my son. That merchant is very wise. He recognized that your brother has something you don't. Not talent. You have more natural talent than Ease. Not intelligence. You're both intelligent. He recognized something else. Something more valuable. What? He recognized that Ease actually cares about doing the work, not just being seen doing the work. He saw that Ease serves people instead of performing for them. He saw that Ease builds relationships instead of collecting admirers. Chike's face hardened. So you're saying I'm fake? I'm saying you're focused on the wrong things. And if you don't change what you value, you're going to lose everything you think makes you valuable. Chike walked away, and with every step, the gap between the brothers grew wider. Here's something most people don't understand about farming. The harvest is not the reward. The harvest is the report card. It tells you everything you did wrong or right for the past 6 months. It doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't care about your intentions or your excuses. It just reports. The year the boys turned 15 and 13, the harvest came early. The rains had been perfect. The sun had been generous. This should have been a great year for everyone. Ease's small personal plot, which he'd been managing for 2 years now, produced even more per square meter than his father's. The boy had been experimenting, learning, optimizing. His yams were the talk of the village. And Chike's plot? Disaster. The soil was exhausted because he'd planted the same crop in the same place for 2 years, without rotating or replenishing. He'd skipped the weeding because it was boring. He'd ignored signs of pests because dealing with them was tedious. His harvest was less than a third of what it should have been. Standing in his field, looking at the pathetic yield, Chaik felt something dangerous growing in his chest. Not humility, not the desire to learn, but rage. Rage at his father for not helping more. Rage at his brother for succeeding where he'd failed. Rage at the universe for not recognizing his natural superiority. Rage at everyone except the one person responsible, himself. That evening, the village held a harvest festival. Families brought their best produce to share. There was music, dancing, celebration. The kind of joy that comes from surviving another year, from having enough, from knowing the work was worth it. During the celebration, the elders honored the young farmers who'd shown exceptional results. Ease was called forward. So were 3 other young men. Each received a prize, seeds for the next season, a farming tool, and most importantly, a small plot of communal land they could farm as their own, keeping all the profits. Chaik wasn't called, wasn't honored, wasn't even mentioned. He stood at the edge of the firelight, watching his younger brother receive what he believed should have been his. And in that moment, something inside Chaik made a decision. If merit wouldn't give him success, he would find another way. If hard work was too slow, he would find shortcuts. If the system didn't reward his natural superiority, he would game the system. This is the turning point. This, right here, is the moment where destiny splits. Not dramatically, not obviously, but completely. Ease's success drove him to work harder, to learn more, to become better. His reward made him feel responsible, like he had to prove he deserved it, like he had to honor the trust the elders showed in him. Chaik's failure drove him to work smarter, or so he told himself, to find more efficient ways, to look for opportunities instead of labor, to become strategic instead of diligent. One brother learned from success to keep doing what works. The other learned from failure to avoid what's hard. And that single difference in what they learned from their experiences, that was everything. In the months that followed, Ease would wake before dawn to work his plot. Chaik would sleep in, telling himself that rest was strategic, that he was thinking about opportunities, that working like a common farmer was beneath someone with his potential. Ease saved every coin he earned. Chaik spent his on looking successful, new clothes, gifts to impress people, drinks to buy friends. Ease studied the successful farmers and traders, learning their techniques. Chaik studied them too, looking for their shortcuts, their secrets, the one weird trick that explained their success. Both brothers thought they were being smart. Both thought they understood the game. Only one was right. Five years vanished like morning mist. Chaik was now 22. He'd grown into his looks, tall, strong-featured, with the kind of face that made mothers dream of him as their son-in-law and fathers worry about him near their daughters. He'd also grown into his patterns, the shortcuts, the schemes, the confident belief that success was just one good break away. Ease was 20, quieter than ever, more focused. He'd been working with that merchant for 2 years now, learning the trade routes, building relationships, saving aggressively. He wasn't rich yet, but he was stable, growing, building something real. Then came the most beautiful girl in the village. Her name was Amara, and she was, look, in every village, there's one woman who makes every man stupid just by existing. Amara was that woman. She was the daughter of the wealthiest trader in the region. She'd been educated in the city. She spoke 3 languages. She could read and write. She was beauty and brains wrapped in confidence and opportunity. And every unmarried man in 5 villages wanted her. When Amara returned from the city to visit her father, Chaik saw his chance. Not just for love, though he convinced himself he felt that, but for advancement. Marry Amara, and he'd marry into wealth, into connections, into the easy life he'd always believed he deserved. He launched his campaign like a military operation. He borrowed money to buy expensive gifts. He hired musicians to sing praise songs outside her father's compound. He wrote poetry. Well, he paid someone to write poetry, declaring his undying love. He showed up at every event he knew she'd attend, dressed in borrowed finery, acting the part of a successful man. It was exhausting and expensive, and built entirely on debt. But it was working, or so it seemed. Amara would smile when she saw him. She'd accept his gifts. She'd listen to his grand plans about the business he was about to start, and the wealth he was about to acquire. What Chike didn't know, what his pride wouldn't let him see, was that Amara was conducting an investigation. See, beautiful women with wealthy fathers learn early to distinguish between men who want them and men who want what they represent, between love and strategy, between substance and performance. And Amara was exceptional at reading people. While Chike was performing for her, Amara was watching him when he didn't know she was looking. She saw him at the market, borrowing money from friends. She noticed how he treated servants, dismissively, as if their humanity was inconvenient. She observed how he talked about his brother with barely concealed resentment. Most revealing, she asked about him, not the praise questions. Isn't he wonderful? But the real questions. Does he pay his debts? How does he treat his mother? What does he do when no one is watching? The answers she got painted a clear picture. Then, one day, she did something that would change everything. She went to the market when she knew Chike wouldn't be there, and she watched ease. She saw how he spoke to customers, with respect, regardless of their status. She noticed how he kept his word. If he said he'd save you produce, it was there. She observed how he handled a dispute with a customer who claimed to have been shortchanged. Ease didn't argue, didn't defend. He simply said, "I apologize for the confusion," and gave the customer extra to make up for it, even though Amara could see the customer was clearly trying to cheat him. Later, she asked him about it. "That man was lying. Why did you give him extra?" Ease shrugged. Maybe he was lying. Maybe he genuinely miscounted. Either way, the amount he was arguing about, it's less than my reputation is worth. I'd rather lose a few coins than lose people's trust that I'll make things right. Amara felt something shift in her chest. This was wisdom. This was maturity. This was the kind of thinking that built lasting success. She continued watching both brothers, comparing, evaluating, and slowly, her decision crystallized. After 6 months of courtship, 6 expensive, debt-building months, Chike decided it was time. He would ask Amara's father for her hand in marriage. He prepared like a warrior going to battle. He borrowed his finest clothes. He rehearsed his speech. He gathered letters of recommendation from anyone who would write one. He even borrowed more money to present as bride price to show his seriousness. He arrived at Amara's father's compound with confidence bordering on arrogance. In his mind, the deal was done. He'd won her attention. He'd shown his commitment. This was just a formality. Amara's father, a man named Uchenna, who'd built his wealth through shrewd trading and careful judgment, received Chike in his sitting room. He offered palm wine, made polite conversation, then got to business. "Young man, you want to marry my daughter?" "Yes, sir. I love her deeply, and I can provide well for her." Uchenna's eyes sharpened. "Provide how? What do you have?" Chike launched into his rehearsed speech. His father's land, which wasn't his. His upcoming business ventures, which didn't exist. His connections, which were shallow. His potential, which was theoretical. Uchenna listened without expression. Then he asked one simple question. "What did you do today? Before you came here, what did you do?" Chike was thrown off balance. I prepared for this meeting." So you didn't work? You didn't farm or trade or build anything. You spent the day preparing to talk about future wealth rather than creating present wealth. "Let me tell you what I know about you," Uchenna continued, his voice not unkind but devastatingly honest. "You are in debt to 7 different people. You wear clothes you cannot afford. You make promises you cannot keep. You have spent 6 months pursuing my daughter, but not 6 days building something real to offer her." Chike's face burned. Those are temporary situations. I'm about to. You're always about to. Aren't you? About to start a business. About to make money. About to become successful. But about to is where unsuccessful people live their entire lives. I know you love my daughter, or at least, you love what marrying her would do for your status. But love is not enough. Love doesn't feed children. Love doesn't build houses. Love doesn't pay debts. Uchenna stood, signaling the conversation was over. Come back when you have something real to offer. Not promises. Not potential. Something real. A business that's running. Debts that are paid. Character that's proven. Chaik left that compound a different man than he'd entered. Not better, worse. The rejection didn't humble him. It enraged him. It confirmed what he'd secretly believed all along. The world was rigged. Success was about connections, not merit. And he'd been cheated. He walked through the village, and everyone seemed to be watching. Some with pity. Some with amusement. Some with that knowing look that says, "We told you so." And then, at the market square, he saw something that turned his rage into something darker. Ease and Amara. Talking. Laughing. Nothing romantic. Nothing inappropriate. Just two people having a genuine conversation about trade routes and business. But to Chaik, it looked like betrayal. It looked like conspiracy. It looked like everyone, his father, his brother, Amara, her father, the entire village, was working against him. That night, Chaik made the decision that would seal his fate. He would show them all. He would become rich, quickly, dramatically, undeniably. And when he did, they would all beg for his forgiveness. Starting tomorrow, he would pursue every shortcut, every scheme, every opportunity that promised quick wealth. He would prove that his way, the smart way, the strategic way, was better than his brother's plodding, boring, peasant approach. The trap was set, by his own hand, and he was about to walk into it. Three days after his rejection, Chaik heard about an opportunity. A trader from the coast, a man known for bold ventures and quick returns, was looking for investors. He was organizing a trade expedition to bring salt and dried fish from the coast to the inland regions, where these goods sold for 3 times their coastal price. The profit margin was enormous. The timeline was short, 6 weeks round trip. The investment was substantial, but the returns would be life-changing. It was exactly what Chaik had been looking for. The big break. The game changer. The vindication. There was just one problem. Chaik didn't have the investment capital. But he had something else, his inheritance. See, when a father divides his property among his sons in our culture, part of it is given while he lives for the sons to develop, and part is held in trust until his death. Chaik had a plot of land that was legally his. He just couldn't sell it while his father lived without permission. So Chaik did something that would horrify the ancestors. He went to a money lender. "I need money," Chaik said. "I have land as collateral. Good land." The money lender, a man whose wealth came from other people's desperation, smiled like a crocodile. "Land is acceptable, but the interest is 30% per month." Per month. Risk requires compensation. You can take the loan or leave it. A wise man would have walked away. A humble man would have consulted his father. A prudent man would have asked his brother for advice. Chaik did none of these things. His pride wouldn't let him. "I'll take it." He borrowed enough to invest in the coastal traders' expedition. The interest was crushing, but Chaik calculated it wouldn't matter. He'd triple his money in 6 weeks and pay back the loan, with enough left over to finally show everyone who he really was. The trader took his money, gave him official-looking documents, and promised to send word when the expedition returned. Chaik waited. 6 weeks turned into 8. 8 weeks turned into 12. He went to the tavern where he'd met the trader. Gone. He asked other merchants about the expedition. Nobody knew anything. He traveled to the coast to investigate. The man didn't exist there. Slowly, sickeningly, the truth crystallized. He'd been scammed. The coastal trader had been running a confidence scheme. He'd collected money from dozens of people across multiple villages, given them all authentic-looking documents, and disappeared into the vast anonymity of the coast. Chaik's investment, all of it was gone. But the debt, that remained. And it was growing. 30% per month, compounding, becoming a monster that ate everything in its path. The money lender didn't care about Chaik's sob story. He didn't care about fraud or bad luck. He cared about one thing, payment. You have 60 days, the moneylender said. Pay the full amount plus interest, or I take your land. And if the land doesn't cover it, I go to your father for the rest. Meanwhile, on that same timeline, something different was happening with Ease. The merchant he'd been working with offered him a partnership. Not charity, not a gift, a business proposition. You've proven yourself reliable, the merchant said. I want to expand my operations, but I'm getting old. I need someone who thinks like an owner, not an employee. I'll provide the capital and connections. You provide the management and hustle. We split profits 60-40 until you've earned back my investment. Then we're equal partners. Ease didn't answer immediately. Can I think about it? I want to discuss it with my father. The merchant smiled. That's exactly why I'm offering this to you. Take your time. Real opportunities don't evaporate. Ease went to Okonkwo that evening. They talked for hours. They calculated risks. They examined the merchant's reputation. They prayed. They consulted the elders. And then, with his father's blessing, Ease accepted. Within a month, Ease was managing 3 trade routes. Within 3 months, he'd optimized them and increased profits by 40%. Within 6 months, he'd earned enough to buy his first piece of land, not inherited, but purchased with money he'd earned. The gap between the brothers, already wide, became a chasm. And here's the cruel irony. Both brothers had received opportunities. Both had chances to advance. The difference wasn't in what they were offered, but in what they chose. Chike chose the quick scheme from a stranger promising easy wealth. Ease chose the slow partnership from a trusted mentor offering real growth. Chike chose without consulting anyone because his pride said he knew better. Ease chose after consulting his father because his humility said wisdom was valuable. Chike chose based on the size of the potential reward. Ease chose based on the character of the potential partner. And now, the consequences of those choices were about to collide with their lives like a runaway cart. The moneylender didn't wait 60 days. He sent men after 40. They came to Chike's hut at dawn. 3 large men who'd made careers out of collecting debts and didn't care about stories or excuses. You have the money? I need more time. I'm working on. The time for working on things is over. Give us the money or we take the land. Chike's mother, Adana, came out of her hut, seeing the commotion. What's happening? And that's when Chike's world truly collapsed. Because now his mother had to know. His father would know. Everyone would know that he'd risked family land on a scheme. That he'd been scammed. That he'd failed spectacularly. Chike. His mother's voice was quiet but cut deeper than any shout. What have you done? The debt collectors gave him 1 week. After that, they would file papers with the elders to seize his land. Word spread through the village like wildfire. By midday, everyone knew. By evening, it was the only topic of conversation. Chike walked through the market and heard the whispers. Foolish boy. I told you he was all talk. His poor father. Not like his brother. That evening, Okonkwo summoned both his sons. The old man looked like he'd aged 10 years in 1 day. Is it true? He asked Chike. Silence. Look at me, my son. Is it true? Chike finally spoke, his voice defensive and angry. Yes, I invested in a business opportunity. It failed. These things happen. You didn't invest. You gambled. And you used family land as collateral without asking permission. I didn't need permission. It's my land. It's our family's land that has been designated for you. There's a difference. And you just learned it the expensive way. Ease sat quietly, watching his brother unravel. Part of him felt pity. Part of him felt vindication. Mostly, he felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that all the warnings had been ignored. Okonkwo turned to his firstborn with eyes that held more sorrow than anger. I will pay your debt. Chike's face lit up with relief. Father, thank you. I'm not finished. I will pay your debt because I won't let money lenders take our family land. But you will work off every coin. You will come to my farm every day. You will work like a laborer until you've repaid what I've spent. And the land, it goes back into family trust. You've proven you can't be trusted with it. That's not fair. That land is mine. Fair. Okonkwo's voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fair? Fair is that I let the money lenders take the land and teach you the consequence of your choices. Fair is that I let you live in the poverty you've created. But I'm not being fair. I'm being merciful. And you don't even have the wisdom to see the difference. Chike stormed out, rage and shame warring in his chest. Behind him, he heard his father speaking to ease, words that cut deeper than any direct insult. My son, I'm sorry you have to witness this. Learn from your brother's mistakes what I failed to teach him through my words. That night, something inside Chike broke. Not his pride, that would have been healing. His hope, his belief that he could change his circumstances, his connection to his family. He decided that if he was going to be the family disappointment, he might as well lean into it. If they expected nothing from him, he would give them nothing. If they wanted him to work like a common laborer, fine. But he would do the minimum, take no joy in it, and remind them daily that they'd broken him. This is what psychologists would later call learned helplessness. But in the village, they just called it giving up. Three years passed, then 5, then 7. For Chike, they were years of resentment. He worked his father's farm as promised, or rather as forced. He showed up. He did the minimum. He collected no joy, built no skill, learned no lessons. He was serving time, not building a future. Every day was the same. Wake up, go to the farm, work, come home, eat, sleep, repeat. He became a ghost in his own life, present but not participating, alive but not living. The village stopped talking about him, which was somehow worse than when they gossiped. At least gossip meant you mattered enough to discuss. Silence meant you'd become invisible. The young men who'd once followed his lead now barely greeted him. The women who'd once blushed at his smile now looked through him. Even children seemed to sense his defeat and gave him wide berth. Chike had become what he'd feared most, irrelevant. Meanwhile, Ease was becoming someone. The partnership with the merchant had flourished. Ease had expanded from 3 trade routes to 7. He'd established relationships with suppliers across the region. He developed a reputation, the most valuable currency in business. When Ease said he'd deliver, he delivered. When he promised quality, you got quality. When he quoted a price, it was fair. Simple things. Boring things. Things that built empires. By year 5, Ease had bought his own land. 3 plots, good soil, perfect location. By year 6, he'd built a proper house. Not the mud huts most lived in, but a solid structure with a zinc roof and plastered walls. By year 7, he'd married Obioma, the capable young woman from the market, in a ceremony that was modest but genuine. Their first child came a year later, a healthy boy they named Okonkwo, after the grandfather who tried to teach both brothers wisdom. The elders started consulting Ease about village matters. Young man asked him for business advice. Parents pointed to him as an example for their children. And through it all, Ease remained humble. He didn't flaunt his success. He didn't speak badly of his brother. He simply lived his life with integrity and purpose. But that humility, that refusal to gloat, somehow made Chike's resentment burn hotter. Here's what was happening inside Chike's mind, a place that had become a torture chamber of his own design. Every time he saw his brother succeed, he told himself a story. It's not fair. He got lucky. Father favored him. That merchant chose him because of connections, not merit. If I'd had the same opportunities. Every time someone praised Ease, Chike heard it as criticism of himself. They're saying I'm worthless. They're laughing at me. They're glad I failed. Every time he had to work his father's farm, he told himself, this is punishment. This is revenge. They're keeping me down on purpose. None of these stories were true, but Chike believed them so completely that they became his reality. This is the trap that destroys more people than poverty ever could. The trap of the narrative you tell yourself about why you're suffering. If your story is, I made mistakes and I'm learning from them, you have hope and a path forward. If your story is, the world is rigged and everyone is against me, You have nothing but rage and nowhere to go. Chaik had chosen the second story, and it was killing him, not physically, but in every way that mattered. Okonkwo was now 68. His body, which had once been strong as an ox, was failing. The tremors in his hands had worsened. His back, bent from decades of farming, wouldn't straighten anymore. He knew his time was coming, and he had unfinished business. One evening, he called both sons to his compound. It took Chaik an hour to show up, a small rebellion, a tiny assertion of autonomy. When both were finally present, Okonkwo spoke. "I'm dying." The words hung in the air. Ise's eyes filled with tears immediately. Chaik's face remained carefully neutral, but his hands betrayed him, clenching and unclenching. "I've lived a good life. I have no complaints, but I need to say things while I still can, because death doesn't wait for convenient timing." He looked at Ise first. "My son, you've made me proud. Not because you became successful, but because you became wise. You learned that patience is not weakness, it's power. That humility is not lowness, it's height. That serving others is not servitude, it's leadership. You're going to go further than I ever did. Your children will have opportunities one couldn't give you. Your grandchildren will tell stories about you. Not because you were lucky, but because you were faithful to principles when being faithful was hard." Ise wept openly. "Father, I only followed what you taught me." "No, I showed you the path. You chose to walk it. Never forget, that choice was yours. You could have chosen differently." Then Okonkwo turned to Chaik. The older son finally met his father's eyes, and what he saw there wasn't anger or disappointment. It was grief. Deep, aching grief. "Chaik, my firstborn, I have failed you." Chaik's carefully maintained neutrality cracked. "Father, no. Let me speak. I have failed you because I gave you confidence without humility. I celebrated your talents without teaching you the discipline to develop them. I let you believe that being firstborn made you special, when the only thing special about any man is what he chooses to build with what he's given. But Chaik, I didn't fail alone. You failed yourself, and you're still failing yourself every single day. You're not working on my farm as punishment. You're there as opportunity. Opportunity to learn, to grow, to rebuild, but you've turned it into a prison by your own attitude. You're not poor because the world is unfair. You're poor because you've chosen bitterness over growth." Chaik's voice came out strangled. "I don't know how to change. I don't know how to stop being angry." "Yes, you do. You start by admitting 3 words. I was wrong. Not I was unlucky. Not I was betrayed. Not I was treated unfairly. Just, I was wrong. Until you can say those words and mean them, you'll stay exactly where you are. And when I'm gone, you'll have a choice. Will you finally learn? Or will you spend the rest of your life as a bitter old man, telling anyone who'll listen how unfair the world was to you?" Okonkwo reached out, taking both sons' hands. "I'm leaving you equal inheritance. The same land, the same resources, the same foundation. What you build on that foundation, that's up to you." He looked at Chaik with fierce love. "It's not too late, my son. Even now, even after all these years, it's not too late. But time is running out. Not because I'm dying. Death is coming for all of us. Time is running out because every day you spend in bitterness is a day you can't get back." That night, after they left their father's compound, Ise tried to talk to his brother. "Chaik, I want to help. Whatever you need. I don't want your help. I don't want your pity. I don't want anything from you." But as Chaik walked away, something was different. His father's words had found a crack in his armor. Not enough to break through yet, but enough to let in a sliver of light. 3 months later, Okonkwo died peacefully in his sleep, his wife beside him, his legacy secure in at least one son. The funeral lasted 3 days. The entire village came. Even people from neighboring villages, who traded with him over the years, made the journey. And as they eulogized him, as they listed his virtues and told stories of his wisdom, Chaik felt something he hadn't felt in years: shame. Not the hot shame of public humiliation, but the cold shame of wasted potential. His father had given him everything, and he'd thrown it all away. And now his father was gone, and there would be no more chances to make him proud. Or was there? On the 8th day after Okonkwo's burial, the elders gathered to distribute his property. This was tradition, law, and sacred duty combined. Okonkwo had left a will, written with the help of the village scribe, that was crystal clear. To my sons, Chike and Ease, I leave my land divided equally, 3 plots each. To both, I leave equal portions of my livestock. To both, I leave equal shares of my savings. Everything equal, everything fair. There was a murmur of surprise. Many had expected Okonkwo to favor Ease, who'd proven himself. But the old man had done something more profound. He'd given both sons one final chance to prove who they were. The will continued with a message. My sons, I leave you equal portions, not because you've earned equal measures, but because you're both my blood, and I love you equally. What you do with this inheritance will tell the world, and tell you, who you really are. Chike looked at his 3 plots of land and saw redemption. Finally, with land and resources, he could start over. He could launch the business he'd always dreamed of. He could prove everyone wrong. Ease looked at his 3 plots and saw responsibility. More land meant more to manage, more people depending on him, more opportunities to serve, and more ways to fail if he wasn't careful. The same gift. 2 completely different perspectives. Within 2 weeks, Chike made his first decision. He sold one of his 3 plots of land. The elders were horrified. Chike, why would you sell land your father died to give you? Because land doesn't create wealth. Capital creates wealth. I'm not a farmer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to invest this money in a real business, not waste it growing vegetables like a peasant. There it was again. That contempt for honest work. That belief that there was some magical other way that was superior to the proven path. He took the money from the land sale and added it to the inheritance money and the value of the livestock he'd sold. Yes, he'd sold those too. He now had substantial capital, more money than he'd ever had at once, and he was determined not to make the same mistakes as last time. He researched. He asked questions. He visited the city. He consulted with traders. He was being careful, strategic, smart, or so he thought. He found what seemed like a legitimate opportunity. A merchant was importing goods from across the sea. Tools, cloth, luxury items. He needed investors to expand his inventory. The merchant had an established shop, regular customers, and apparently good reputation. This wasn't some fly-by-night scheme. This was real business, with a real person in a real location. Chike invested 80% of his capital. The merchant was real. The shop was real. The problem, the merchant was drowning in debt that Chike didn't know about. Within 3 months, creditors seized the shop. Chike's investment vanished like smoke. He was back where he'd started. Worse, actually, because now he'd lost inherited land. Land his father had worked a lifetime to acquire. Land that was supposed to be his children's inheritance. Gone. Meanwhile, Ease had taken his 3 plots and integrated them systematically into his existing operation. He planted cassava on one, yams on another, and used a third for grazing expanded livestock. He didn't sell anything. He added to what he already had. He grew methodically, carefully, sustainably. Within a year, the income from those 3 plots had paid for an additional plot he purchased outright. His wealth wasn't just growing, it was compounding. The gap that had been wide before now became a canyon, so vast you couldn't see across it. Chike was now 35 years old, and he had nothing. His 2 remaining plots of land produced barely enough to feed himself. His hut was falling apart. His clothes were threadbare. He'd aged 20 years in appearance, the kind of aging that comes from stress and bitterness, not time. He'd become what the village pitied most, a cautionary tale. Mothers would point to him when teaching their sons. Work hard and be wise, or you'll end up like Okonkwo's eldest son. Young men would see him and whisper, "That's what happens when you think you're too good for honest work." Even his name had become an adjective. Don't be like Chaik meant don't be foolish, lazy, proud, or wasteful. This was death before dying. This was being buried while still breathing. And Ease, he was now 33 and had become what the village celebrated. His business employed 23 people. His children, he had 3 now, went to good schools. His wife dressed well. His compound was impressive. His name brought respect. He'd become an elder at age 33, almost unheard of, but his wisdom and success had earned him the position. When disputes arose, people asked for Ease. When advice was needed, they sought Ease. When the village planned projects, Ease was consulted. And through it all, he remained humble. He never spoke badly of his brother. He never flaunted his success. He simply lived with integrity and purpose. But that humility made everything worse for Chaik, because it meant he couldn't even hate his brother properly. Couldn't point to arrogance or cruelty as justification for his resentment. One evening, Chaik did something desperate. He went to Ease's compound. It took him an hour to walk there, not because of distance, but because pride kept stopping his feet. When he arrived, Ease was sitting outside, playing with his children. The scene was so peaceful, so complete, so impossible for Chaik to ever have, that he almost turned back. But hunger, not just for food, but for hope, pushed him forward. "Brother," Chaik said, his voice rough from disuse. Ease looked up, surprise flashing across his face, followed quickly by concern. "Chaik, come sit." They sat. Silence stretched. Ease's children stared at this strange thin man, who was apparently their uncle, but they'd never really met. Finally, Chaik spoke. "I need help." 3 words. Simple words. But they cost Chaik more than everything he'd lost. Because saying them meant admitting defeat. Admitting that his way had failed. Admitting that his brother had been right all along. Ease didn't respond immediately. He sent his children inside. He called his wife to bring food and water. Then he sat back down and looked at his brother. Really looked at him. "What kind of help?" "I don't know. Money. Advice. A job. Anything. I'm drowning." Here's where the story could have gone 2 ways. Ease could have said no, and he would have been justified. Chaik had rejected his help before, had resented his success, had blamed him for things that weren't his fault. Or Ease could have said yes, out of pity, or duty, or superiority. But Ease did something wiser than either option. "Brother, I'll help you, but not the way you think. I'm not going to give you money. You'll lose it like you've lost everything else. I'm not going to give you a job. You'll resent me as your employer and sabotage yourself. What I'll give you is harder than either of those things." Chaik felt anger flash, even now. Even begging, his pride roared. "So you're saying no?" "I'm saying I'll give you something more valuable than money. I'll give you a path, and you have to choose whether to walk it. Here's the deal. I'll give you seeds, tools, and training. I'll teach you everything I know about farming efficiently. I'll show you how to plan, how to manage resources, how to think long-term. But you have to do the work. All of it. Every single day. For 1 full year without quitting. That's it. Farm work. I need more than. Let me finish. If, after 1 year, you've proven you can commit to something difficult without quitting, I'll partner with you. Real partnership. I'll provide capital. You provide labor and management. We split profits. But if you quit even once, the offer vanishes forever." Chaik wanted to argue, wanted to demand immediate rescue, wanted to explain why this wasn't enough, wasn't fair, wasn't what he needed. But something stopped him. Maybe it was his father's words echoing in his mind. Maybe it was the look in his brother's eyes, not pity, but challenge. Maybe it was simply that he had no other options. Why would you do this? After everything. Ease's answer was simple. "Because you're my brother. Because our father asked me to watch out for you with his last words. And because I believe you can change. You just never believed it yourself." Chaik felt something crack inside. Not break, crack. Like ice beginning to thaw. "I'll do it. Don't commit lightly. This isn't going to be easy. I'm going to push you. Hold you accountable. Not let you make excuses. You're going to hate me some days. I already hate you some days." For the first time in years, both brothers laughed. Dark humor, painful humor, but humor nonetheless. The next morning, Chike showed up at Isa's compound before sunrise. This was important. Showing up early meant something. It meant he was serious. Isa was already there, of course. He'd been up for an hour. "Ready?" "No, but I'm here." That's enough for day one. What followed was the hardest year of Chike's life. Not because the work was physically difficult, though it was, but because it required something he'd avoided his entire adult life: consistency. Every single day, regardless of weather, mood, or how he felt, Chike had to show up, had to do the work, had to follow through. No shortcuts, no excuses, no quitting. Isa was a demanding teacher. When Chike did sloppy work, Isa made him do it again. When Chike complained, Isa listened once then said, "Complaining time is over. Back to work." When Chike tried to cut corners, Isa caught him every time. Do it right or do it twice. Your choice. The first month was hell. Chike's body, soft from years of minimal labor, screamed in protest. His mind, used to wandering into resentment, had to be constantly redirected to the present task. He wanted to quit daily, hourly even, but something kept him coming back. He'd made a promise, not just to Isa, but to himself. And for the first time in his life, keeping a promise mattered more than protecting his pride. The second month was slightly better. His body adapted. His skills improved. He could plant a row of yams now, without Isa having to correct him. Small victory, but a victory. The third month, something shifted. Chike started asking questions, not to challenge, but to learn. Why you plant these so deep? Why rotate these crops specifically? Why wait for the moon phase before harvesting? Isa answered everything patiently, and Chike absorbed it like dry earth absorbs rain. By month 6, villagers noticed something. Chike was different. He walked differently, straighter, with purpose. He spoke differently, less complaining, more planning. He looked different, healthier, stronger, present. By month 9, Chike was working without supervision. Isa would assign tasks and Chike would complete them, properly, efficiently, without complaint. By month 12, something remarkable happened. Chike's 2 remaining plots of land, which he'd been neglecting for years, were now producing better yields than ever before, because he was applying what Isa taught him. On the anniversary of their agreement, Isa came to Chike's plot. He walked through, examining the work, saying nothing. Chike stood aside, nervous for the first time in months, nervous that his work wouldn't measure up. Finally, Isa spoke. "You did it." "Did I pass?" "You did more than pass. You transformed. This is excellent work, Chike. Professional work. Work that shows thought, care, and discipline." Chike felt something he hadn't felt in over a decade: pride. Not the hollow pride of appearance, but the solid pride of accomplishment. Pride earned through sweat and consistency and follow-through. "So, the partnership?" Isa smiled. "The partnership. But first, tell me, what did you learn this year?" Chike thought carefully. "I learned that I was wrong. About everything. I thought success was about finding the right opportunity. But it's about becoming the right person. I thought work was beneath me. But there's no work beneath you if it needs doing. I thought you were lucky. But you weren't lucky. You were faithful. Faithful to principles, to promises, to the process. I learned that every shortcut is just a longer road to failure. I learned that my father was right about everything, and I was too proud to hear it. I learned that I wasted 15 years of my life because I refused to admit I was wrong." Tears ran down Chike's face, not tears of shame now, but of release, of finally letting go of the lies he'd told himself. "And I learned that it's never too late. Even now, even after all I've destroyed, it's never too late to choose differently." Isa pulled his brother into an embrace. "Welcome back, brother. I've missed you." The partnership between the brothers was unusual in the village. Typically, partnerships were between unrelated men or between father and son. Brothers were either rivals or one clearly superior to the other. But Chaik and Ease had found something different. True partnership based on complementary strengths and mutual respect. Ease brought capital, connections, and business wisdom. Chaik brought renewed energy, creativity from his varied, failed experiences, and a hunger to prove his transformation was real. Their first joint venture was simple, expanding cassava production for the city market. Ease had the market contacts. Chaik had land that was now productive. Together, they could scale up efficiently. It worked. The first harvest brought solid profit, split 60-40 as agreed. Ease's capital earned the largest share. But more valuable than the profit was what Chaik learned about business operations. He saw how Ease negotiated, firmly but fairly. How he handled customer complaints, with empathy but boundaries. How he managed workers, with respect but accountability. These weren't the flashy, secret strategies Chaik had always chased. They were boring fundamentals executed consistently. But boring fundamentals built empires. Over the next 3 years, the partnership expanded. They added livestock trading, then palm oil processing, then a small shop at the village market. Each venture grew methodically. Nothing explosive, nothing glamorous, but each year was better than the last. And Chaik changed in ways beyond business. He got married, finally, not to the most beautiful girl in the village, but to a widow named Adiz, who had 3 children from her first marriage. Chaik's old self would never have considered marrying a widow with children. Where was the status in that? Where was the trophy? But Chaik's new self saw something different. A strong woman who knew how to survive hardship. Children who needed a father figure. An opportunity to build a real family, not perform an image of success. Their marriage wasn't easy, blending families never is. But Chaik approached it the way he now approached everything, with consistency, patience, and humility. He showed up for those children, every day. When they were difficult, when they rejected him, when they compared him to their dead father, he kept showing up. And slowly, they began to call him father. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. The village watched this transformation with a mixture of amazement and cautious hope. Could people really change? Could the worst failures become solid successes? Chaik was proving the answer was yes, but only if you were willing to do the hard, unglamorous work of character development. 20 years after Chaik's transformation began, a familiar pattern started emerging. Ease's eldest son, young Okonkwo, was now 25. He'd grown up in prosperity, gone to university, and returned full of ideas and impatience. "Father," he said one day, "your methods are old-fashioned. You're too cautious. We should be expanding faster, taking bigger risks, leveraging debt for growth." He heard echoes of his brother's young voice in his son's words. That same confidence, that same impatience, that same belief that there was a better, faster way. What risks do you want to take? There's an opportunity in the city. Import-export business. The profit margins are huge. We could triple our money in a year. And if it fails, it won't fail. This is different. I've researched it. I have connections from university. This isn't some village scheme. This is real business. Ease looked at his son, so smart, so educated, so completely unprepared for the hard lessons life teaches. And he made a difficult decision. No. What? "Father, you're not even considering. I'm not stopping you. You're a grown man, but I'm not funding it. If you want to pursue this, use your own money. But I don't have that kind of capital. Then earn it, or borrow it and bear the consequences. But I won't enable your impatience." Young Okonkwo stormed off, furious. He went to his uncle Chaik, expecting sympathy, expecting another business mind to see his vision. Instead, Chaik sat him down and told him a story. His own story. Every humiliating detail. Every failure. Every consequence of chasing shortcuts. "I was you," Chaik said. "Smart. Confident. Sure, I knew better than the old ways. And I wasted 15 years of my life learning that I was wrong. Your father isn't being cautious because he's old-fashioned. He's being cautious because he's wise. He's seen what happens when intelligence outpaces character, when ambition outruns discipline, when confidence exceeds competence. Young Okonkwo listened, but like his uncle before him, he didn't really hear. Not yet. He went to the city anyway. He borrowed money. He invested in the opportunity that seemed so promising. And within 6 months, he learned what his uncle had learned. Not all opportunities are opportunities. Some are traps dressed in possibility. But here's where the story diverged. When young Okonkwo failed, he had something his uncle hadn't had. He had a father who'd succeeded, and an uncle who'd failed but recovered. He had 2 paths clearly laid out. He had living proof that transformation was possible. So when he returned to the village, defeated and in debt, he didn't hide. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame. He went to both his father and his uncle and said 3 words. I was wrong. And because he admitted it quickly, because he didn't spend years in denial, his recovery was faster. His father and uncle helped him, not by rescuing him, but by teaching him. Within 2 years, he'd paid his debts and learned the lessons that took his uncle 15 years to learn. The cycle had been broken. The brothers were now in their late 50s. Their hair had grayed. Their bodies had slowed. But their legacies were secure. Ease had become one of the wealthiest men in the region. Not city wealthy, but village wealthy, which meant something more valuable. He'd created opportunities for others. His businesses employed over 100 people. His children were educated and wise. His grandchildren would start life with advantages he'd never had. He wasn't as wealthy as his brother. The years he'd lost couldn't be fully recovered. But he had enough. His blended family was happy. His stepchildren had become successful. And most importantly, he had peace. The bitterness was gone. The resentment was gone. The constant comparison was gone. He'd learned to measure success, not against his brother, but against his yesterday self. And by that measure, he was extraordinarily successful. One evening, the village elders asked both brothers to speak to the young people about success and failure. It was Chaik who spoke first, and what he said became the story that spread across the region. Young people, look at me and my brother. We came from the same womb. We had the same father, the same opportunities, the same starting point. Today, my brother is wealthy, and I am comfortable. The question everyone asks is, why? Let me tell you the answer that took me 30 years to understand. Success is not about talent. I had more talent than my brother when we were young. Success is not about intelligence. We were both intelligent. Success is not about opportunity. We had the same opportunities. Success is not even about hard work. I worked hard at many things. I just worked hard at the wrong things, in the wrong way, for the wrong reasons. Success is about 3 things, and 3 things only. First, consistency over intensity. My brother woke up early every day. Not just on days he felt motivated. Every single day. I woke up early only when I was excited about something new. And excitement fades. Success is boring. It's doing the same productive thing over and over until it compounds into something extraordinary. I was always looking for the exciting shortcut. My brother walked the boring long path. Guess who arrived at the destination? Second, character over charisma. I was more charming than my brother. More confident. Better at impressing people. And it meant nothing. Because charm without character is just manipulation. Confidence without competence is just delusion. My brother built real relationships based on trust and reliability. I collected admirers based on performance and promises. When hard times came, his relationships held him up. My admirers disappeared like smoke. Third, responsibility over blame. This is the big one. The one that cost me 15 years. When I failed, I blamed everyone. My father, my brother, the traitors who cheated me, the world for being unfair. And as long as I blamed others, I stayed stuck. Because if it's everyone else's fault, then only everyone else can fix it. And they won't. My brother, when things went wrong, he asked, what can I do differently? Not who can I blame, but what can I change? That single difference, that one question, created our entirely different lives. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 20. The universe doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your excuses. The universe only responds to your actions, repeated over time. You want to be wealthy? Start saving today. Even if it's just a coin. Do it every week for 30 years. That's wealth. You want to be skilled? Practice your craft every day. Not when you feel like it. Every day. That's mastery. You want to be respected? Keep your word. Every single time. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's character. There are no shortcuts. Every shortcut I ever took led me backward. The longest way around was the shortest way home. And here's the hardest truth. You probably won't believe me. Just like I didn't believe my father. Just like my nephew didn't believe me at first. You'll probably have to learn these lessons the hard way. But when you do fail, and you will fail, we all do, you have a choice. You can spend years in denial like I did, blaming everyone else, waiting for circumstances to change. Or you can admit you were wrong, learn the lesson, and start building something real. The second path is harder in the moment but easier in the long run. The first path is easier in the moment, but harder for the rest of your life. Choose wisely, because 15 years from now, you'll be living with the consequences of the choice you make today. Then he spoke. His words were simpler, but equally powerful. My brother has told you what to avoid. Let me tell you what to embrace. Love the process more than the outcome. I never farmed for wealth. I farmed because I loved watching things grow. The wealth came as a side effect of loving the work. Serve before you sell. I built my business by solving other people's problems, not by trying to get rich. When you focus on service, success follows. When you focus on success, frustration follows. Plant trees you'll never sit under. Everything I built wasn't for me. It was for my children, my grandchildren, my community. When you work for something bigger than yourself, the work has meaning even on hard days. And finally, it's never about you versus someone else. It's only ever about you versus yesterday's you. My brother wasted years comparing himself to me. But we weren't in competition. We were on different paths entirely. The only question that mattered was, is he better today than yesterday? Once he asked that question, his transformation began. The young people left that gathering changed. Not all of them. Some would still have to learn the hard way. But some understood. Some chose the boring, consistent path. Some chose character over charisma. Some chose responsibility over blame. And those young people, they became the next generation's success stories. The story of the two brothers became legend in the region. Parents told it. Teachers used it. Elders referenced it. And with each retelling, the wisdom spread. And now, my friend, we return to you. An hour have passed. You've traveled through the entire life of two brothers. You've seen where every choice led. You've witnessed the pattern of success and the pattern of failure. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Right now, at this very moment, you're making a choice. Maybe you don't feel like you're choosing. Maybe you think you're just watching a video. But you're choosing. You're choosing whether to be Chike, looking for the shortcut, the scheme, the easy path. Or ease, committed to the process, the consistency, the long path. You're choosing whether to blame your circumstances or take responsibility for changing them. You're choosing whether to chase appearance or build substance. You're choosing whether to serve or to impress. And here's the terrifying truth. You're making these choices in tiny moments that don't seem important. What you do today, whether you keep your word about a small thing, whether you do excellent work when no one is watching, whether you save that little bit of money or spend it on appearance, these tiny choices are writing your destiny. 5 years from now, you'll look back at today and realize that was the turning point. That was the day everything changed. Either the day I started walking the right path, or the day I chose the wrong one. So let me ask you directly, personally, urgently, which brother are you? Not which one do you want to be? Not which one you plan to be someday. Which one are you, right now, based on what you actually do every day? Are you consistent or just occasionally motivated? Are you building character or managing your image? Are you taking responsibility or distributing blame? Are you serving others or using them? Are you loving the process or just lusting after outcomes? Your answer to these questions, not the answer you wish were true, but the honest answer based on your actual behavior, will predict your future with frightening accuracy. But here's the hope: you can change. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances improve. Right now, this moment, this breath. Chike was 35 when he finally changed. He'd lost 15 years to pride and blame, but he changed, and the last 20 years of his life were better than the first 35. It's never too late, but it's also never early enough. Start today. Start small, but start. Keep one promise today. Just one, even a small one, especially a small one. Do one thing excellently today, even if no one will see it, especially if no one will see it. Take responsibility for one thing you've been blaming others for. Just one thing. And ask yourself, what can I do differently? These small acts won't change your life today, but repeated every day for 5 years, they'll change everything. The story of the two brothers is complete. Their choices are made. Their destinies are sealed. But your story is still being written. Right now, in this moment, every choice you make for the rest of today will add a sentence to your story. Every choice tomorrow will add a paragraph. Every choice this year will add a chapter. 5 years from now, someone might tell your story. They might point to you as an example of something. Will you be the cautionary tale or the inspiration, the tragedy or the triumph, the Chike who wasted years or the ease who built wisely, or the Chike who transformed? The choice is yours. It's always been yours, and it always will be yours. The story of the two brothers has taught you everything you need to know. The question is, will you do anything with what you know? Because knowing changes nothing. Doing changes everything. Go well. Choose wisely. Work faithfully. Build truly. Your children's children are watching from the future. Make them proud.